Hello, my yarny friends. I'm Sara Sach. Welcome back to my crochet channel. Also, welcome to Friday Fun Day. And we have a Sparkle and Shine Friday Fun Day just for you. Now, what this is our Sparkle and Shine Cowl. Perfect for adding any sparkle and shine you need for your New Year's Eve party, but also anytime you want a little extra sparkle and shine. Now, I used sparkle and metallic yarns. You don't have to. This is a really easy pattern. It's basically a 1-row V-stitch pattern, and it's just super easy. It's a great pattern. Even if you've got some leftover scrap yarns, it's a great pattern for that. Now, this one measures approximately 38 inches around, and it's about 8 inches wide. It's not huge. It has, a little bit of holes in it, so it's not over warmth, but it will add a little extra warmth. You can wear it on your shoulders. You can wear it drooped down. As you saw in those pictures at the beginning of the video, there are lots of ways to wear this particular cowl. And also remember, you don't have to stripe it like I did. I just wanted to because I found these beautiful purple sparkle yarn and this silver sparkle yarn that's perfect for my New Year's Eve outfit. Now, you can find the complete pattern with pictures on my blog, and as always, I'll put that link down in the notes underneath this video. So, to make our Sparkle and Shine cowl, that can also be a scarf or infinity scarf, you're going to need 3 ounces of 2 different medium weight number 4 yarns, or a total of 6 ounces. I changed colors every 2 rows. You don't have to. This would be beautiful in an ombre, a solid, however you want to do it. You could change colors a whole bunch if you want to. I just really loved this purple. This purple is the I Love This yarn. It is the metallic, and the color is called Grapette. And you need 3 ounces of that, and then you'll need 3 ounces of a silver. Now, this silver is Red Heart Super Saver Metallic. When I went to get a purple, I couldn't find a silver in the I Love This yarn, so I bought the Red Heart at Walmart. Okay, so I got this at Hobby Lobby and this at Walmart. They're both medium weight number 4 acrylic yarns, and you can use any medium weight number 4 acrylic yarns. It doesn't have to be Hobby Lobby or Red Heart Super Saver. It can be any yarns, and it doesn't have to be the sparkle. I just wanted it sparkly so I could wear it for our New Year's Eve get together. All right. Now, I do have a button here. This is a beautiful star, and it's a sparkle star. Isn't that gorgeous? And I bought this at Joann's probably, oh my goodness, 4 or 5 years ago. And there were 2 on it on a card, and I think they were $6 for 2 of them. And I saw them and I thought, I've got to come up with something beautiful to make with that. And I used it on the other one on something else. And I've been saving this beautiful star, and I think it goes perfect with this cowl. And this is decorative. You can use any button that you want. And then we're going to be stitching today with our eye hook, which is a 5.5 millimeter crochet hook. And then you just need a needle and a pair of scissors. All right, so to make our scarf or cowl, we're going to begin with our slip knot. And I'm going to chain 25 chains. Now remember, we should always chain that beginning chain loosely. All right, I have chained 25 chains, just a little bit loose. And we're going to begin by placing a double crochet in the 4th chain from the hook. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yarn over and stitch our double crochet. And then we'll stitch 1 double crochet in each of our chains, working all the way across. There we go. We began in the 4th chain from the hook and then stitched 1 double crochet in each chain across. We count this chain 3 right here as our first stitch, so we have 23 double crochets. We're going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and turn our work. Now we're going to double crochet in the next 2. The chain 3 on this row and every row will count as your first double crochet. So we'll skip the first one and stitch 1 in the next 2. And that'll give us 3 double crochets at the beginning of our row. Now we're going to skip the next stitch and stitch a V-stitch in the next. And our V-stitch is a double crochet, chain 1, and double crochet in the same stitch. Skip the next V-stitch in the next. And we're going to repeat this until we have a total of 8 V-stitches. So here we have 3. So I'll need to stitch 5 more. So I have repeated that across. Skip 1 V-stitch, skip 1 V-stitch all the way across. And now that leaves us with 4 stitches. And we have 8 V-stitches. So we're going to skip the next and stitch 1 double crochet in those last 3 stitches. Now on this row we are not going to chain 3 because we're going to be changing our colors. All right. For row 2 we have 3 double crochets. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 V-stitches, and then we end with 3 double crochets. Now we're not going to chain 3 because we're going to bring in our next color. And then we're going to chain 3. That way our first stitch that counts as our first stitch, our chain 3 counts as our first double crochet, and if we would have made that in purple, we would have 1 stitch the wrong color on the next row. Now we are going to leave our color 1 attached. So we're just going to turn. We're going to stitch 1 double crochet in the next 2 stitches. And again, our chain 3 counts as our first. So we have 3 double crochets at the beginning of our row. All right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to stitch a V-stitch in each of the chain 1 spaces of our V-stitches. And we'll do this all the way across. And again, our V-stitch is a double crochet, chain 1, and double crochet. And we'll do this all the way across until we reach those last 3 double crochet stitches. So we have our chain 3, 2 double crochets, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 V-stitches. And now we're just going to place a double crochet in these last 3 stitches. And we're not changing colors on this row, so we're going to go ahead and chain 3. And then we're going to turn our work. And so for row 3, we have our 3 double crochets, our 8 V-stitches, and 3 double crochets. We chained 3, which again counts as our first double crochet. And then we're going to double crochet in the next 2 stitches. And then again, we're going to place a V-stitch in each of the V-stitches. We'll go right in that chain 1 space and stitch a V-stitch in each of the V-stitches across. Just like we did on that previous row. So we stitched those 8 V-stitches, and now we're just going to stitch 1 double crochet in those last 3 stitches. 1, 2 and 3. Now we are going to change colors. So we're going to drop our color 2 and pick back up our color 3. And we're going to be trailing our colors up the side. That way we don't have to cut them afterwards. And then when we're done, we're going to do a row of single crochet all the way down the side. When you're trailing your yarn, you need to be careful not to pull it too tight, but also not to let it droop too much. All right, chain 3, I am going to turn my work. And you may have to occasionally pick up your yarns and unwind them, or you end up with a little bit of a twisty mess, okay? I usually do it after every 2 rows. Alrighty, so we have our chain 3 in our purple. So we'll go to the next 2 double crochets and stitch a double crochet. And then again, we're going to stitch a V-stitch in the chain 1 space of our V-stitches. And we'll do this all the way across. We'll stitch 1 double crochet in those last 3, chain 3, turn, and repeat that back across. All right? So we're going to do 2 rows of the purple, exactly like we did with that silver sparkle. So basically we're repeating row 4 for 2 more rows, only in the purple. So you can see I repeated those 2 rows in purple. And so basically all you're going to do is continue to repeat 3 double crochets, 8 V-stitches, 3 double crochets, and then change colors every 2 rows. All right, so we're going to bring back in our color 2. And see how I'm carrying that up on the sides? That way we don't have to cut it every row and weave that in. And we'll be able to stitch over that when we do the trim on the side of our cowl or scarf. All right, so we turn our work. Again, we're going to double crochet in the next 2 because our chain 3 counts as our first. And then we'll stitch that V-stitch in each of the chain 1 spaces of our V-stitches. And so we're going to repeat this for 2 rows just like we did those 2 purple rows. We'll have 3 double crochets, 8 V-stitches, 3 double crochets, chain 3, and turn and repeat, just like we did on the 2 purple rows. I have completed row 7 and row 8, which is exactly like the 2 previous rows and the 2 previous rows. All we're doing is repeating, alternating every 2 rows. So what you're going to do is you're going to continue to repeat row 7 and row 8 for 58 more rows, alternating your colors every 2 rows if you're changing colors. If you're doing it all one color, super simple, right? And it is a really simple pattern, and it makes a really elegant cowl, even though it's super simple. All right, so we're going to repeat row 7 and row 8 for 58 more rows, or more if you want a longer scarf or cowl. And we're going to alternate every 2 rows. So here is my Sparkle and Shine cowl or scarf. And like I said at the beginning of the video, it measures approximately 38 inches in length. If you're making this as just a scarf and you want to add more rows, go for it. Continue to add as many rows as you would like. All right, but for the cowl, we want it to be about 38 inches long. Although if you like a longer cowl, you can of course add more rows, because once we get to our last row, we're just going to put the 2 ends together and stitch them across. Now before we put the 2 ends together and stitch them across, we want to put a single crochet row down the side of our cowl or scarf where we carried our yarns. And I'm going to show you how to do that using my swatch. Now we're only going to be stitching a single crochet row on this one side. We're not going to come across the bottom or this other side or the top. It's just down the side where we carried our yarns, okay? Now I have a couple of ends here that would need to be weaved in. And of course, you're going to have a lot longer side with a lot longer and more carries of your yarns. All right, this is just my swatch as I mentioned. All right, so I decided I wanted to use my color 1 for this trim. You can use your color 2 or whatever color that you want to. So we're going to bring it in and chain 1. Now I'm going to stitch over this tail of yarn just for a couple of stitches. And the key to getting a nice even row is to try to stitch in the sides of the stitches and not the holes. There is not a set number of stitches that you need. You just need to eyeball it so that they're not too close together and all bunched up, but not too far apart either. All right, so I stitched over that tail of yarn for a couple of stitches, so I'm going to get it out of the way. And what you want to do is go around and stitch over those yarns that you carried. This will give you a nice edge on this side and hide all those carries. It's much better to do it this way than to have to cut and join in all those different colors of yarn back and forth. And again, have to weave all those ends in. Now, I do have another end here, so I'll probably go over that for a couple of stitches. Stitch over it. All right, and then we'll just move that tail of yarn out of the way, finish the row. Okay, and then we would stitch all the way down the side, and then we would tie off, and then when we're done, we'll come back in with our needle and weave these ends in. So here is my edge where I stitched over all of those where we carried our yarn, and it looks nice and neat. You don't see any of those. There's no looping or gathering. It looks nice and neat. And again, the key to getting it nice and neat is to stitch in the sides of the stitches, if at all possible, and not the holes. And now what you want to do is you want to take your scarf or cowl and you're going to fold it in half, and we're going to be stitching with the wrong side out. So this is your right side, this is your wrong side, and we're going to put the two ends together, line them up, and stitch them together to form a tube. So I'm going to line up the two ends of my scarf or cowl. I've left my yarn attached, and what you're going to do is you're going to go in the first stitch on this side and the first stitch on this side and just stitch a single crochet. And you're going to make sure you put a single crochet in the double crochets on each side. Now the one end is the end where we ended with V stitches. This side we started with double crochets. So you're not going to put one in the holes of the V stitch or the spaces. You're going to go just in the double crochets and make sure to keep everything lined up all the way across. All right, so we're stitching one single crochet. Oops, I missed the single crochet. There we go. In each of the single crochets across, stitching the front and the back together all the way across. And you may have to ease it in just a little, meaning you have to stretch it some. If maybe your tension loosened or you stitched that beginning chain a little too tight, sometimes you have to do that. All right? But you want to make sure that you keep everything lined up and stitch all the way across, single crochets, stitching your front and back together. So I've stitched across, stitching the front and back sides together. I'm going to cut my yarn, tie this off, and I only have this one end to weave in because we didn't tie off the other end where we did our trim on that side. All right, so I'm just going to weave this in, make sure it's nice and secure. We don't want this coming undone. All righty. Clip that off. And now we're just going to flip it over on the other side. And you have a nice seam right there. And that's where we're going to put our tie and our fancy button. Now to make our tie, I'm just going to use the silver that I used on my cowl. And I'm going to chain 50 chains. And you don't have to worry about doing this very loose. It's going to be a tie, of course. So I'm going to chain 50 chains. So I have chained 50 chains, and you can see it's not a real long tie. We don't want it real long. We're going to go ahead and tie that off. And we're going to put a knot in the end of each of our chains so they don't come undone. I'll do the other end. And you want to get it right up on the end of each of the sides of the chain so it's nice and snug. All right. And then the next thing we need to do is sew on our button. So I'm using the same yarn since it pretty much matches, and it's a back button. So I want to make sure my needle's going to go through, and it does. Alrighty, now we have to decide where we want to put our tie and our button. Now I want to put my button on the seam. That way we can gather this up and it kind of covers that seam a little bit. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our button and we're going to put it a little bit to the top. Alright, so I'm going to take my needle and my yarn. Make sure you go through stitches and not the holes between. I'm going to make that little loop that I like to make when I add a button. Alright, and then I've got to put it through the thing in the back. And we're going to do that a couple of times because that tie is going to be pulling on that. Alright, so we'll go through again. And just as many times until you feel like it's in there securely. And I have to say, I think this button is perfect for this cowl. All right, the yarn's getting a little snug. I think I missed the hole. There we go. Got to get through the hole of the button. All right, so now I'm going to go to the back. There we go. And I'm going to grab my crochet hook and get that other end and pull it to the back. There it is. Didn't want to come. All right, then we're going to tie this on securely because we don't want this button coming off. Alrighty. So now our button's on there and we need to add our tie. So the way we're going to do this is we're not going to just tie it around. We're going to bring it around the button. Like that. And then we'll bring the other two around. Like this. And we're going to tie a little bit of a knot. And this way you'll be able to remove this tie if you want to. Okay, so we're going to tie a little bit of a knot. And then we'll just bring this around the button. like that. And you can have longer ties on there if you want to. Like I said, you can chain more. I just wanted a short one. Okay, and that's how we add the button and the tie. I love it. I can't wait to wear this.